what he said during the interview about, the instances where he was cheating is accurate. But he also doesn't, have to address anything. I mean, right now the fact remains that there's no evidence that Hans cheated over the board. None of his games from this tournament have been suspicious. And I think life has to go on. But it would definitely be concerning if Hans was like a serial online cheater, and cheated in 500 games, and he claimed that this only happened in very like localized incidents. That would be pretty disturbing, and it would raise questions about Hans's credibility. Sorry, and again, that sounds like I'm saying guilty before innocent. Demonstrate is the wrong word. To accept or to agree to more stringent anti-cheating measures. But overall, I would simply wait for the facts to come out. They seem to be coming out with regularity from chess.com. I'm sure Hans will comment on this. And I'm pretty confident that Magnus will eventually make a comment. He's not going to stay silent forever. No, and I agree. I agree that if you're 16, and let's say you're already an IM, you are mature enough to realize the consequences of your actions, especially in a money tournament. So that shouldn't just be like overlooked. Who doesn't make mistakes when they're a kid? But the problem is cheaters will always cheat. That's a categorical statement that is true in some cases and completely false in others. Do you not permit that in some cases a person may see the fault in their actions and, resolve to be better? Hans has at least questionable manners and a bad temper, which could lead to some conclusions as well. Well, I agree that, again, this all comes back to what I was saying earlier. His behavior and his mannerisms cannot really be taken as any kind of even soft evidence to the effect that he's cheating. It's a separate thing that's making people more emotional, I think. I agree that to say that Hans is cheating for sure and then to try to, essentially proverbially turn over all of his possessions to show that would qualify as a witch hunt. To say, okay, he's performing incredibly well, he had an unprecedented rise, we need to examine it carefully because there are red flags in his behavior, both in person and online. In person as in the interviews, not his play. So we need to factually consider that and perhaps subject him to greater scrutiny, while making it extremely clear that nobody believes that he has to, in some sense, prove his innocence and assume his guilt. That, I think, is a measured and reasonable approach. If you make the decision to come clean, that's an admirable decision, but you better do it properly and thoroughly. A half-truth is, often the worst kind of path to take because it erodes your credibility, because then the question arises, why are you not telling the entire truth? So I think right now the ball is sort of tossed back into Hans's court in regards to establishing that what he said during the interview about, the instances where he was cheating is accurate. But he also doesn't, have to address. Yeah, people always think of him like he's a chess player. I would imagine that people think of chess players as chess players, not as cheaters or schmieters. And that's why I think for Hans, it's very important for him to spell out the entire truth from his perspective. And later on, in terms of, building up his reputation, to let people in on, let's say he was cheating constantly. What drove him to do that? How has he changed his mentality? What can he tell people to, what can he tell top players to allay their concerns that this is part of a general pattern?